Hey everybody, we'll get started here in just a minute or two. Just letting a few more people funnel in. It's good to see you all. We typically like to start, about two after the hour, or just to give people time to jump in. Uh, while you are, while you're here, if you want to drop in where you're calling from in the chat, it's nice to know where everyone's calling in from. I'm currently in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Abby, where you at?
I'm in where the Northern Lights are, which is also in Sioux Falls, South Dakota sometimes. But actually, I'm in San Francisco.
Actually, there was a high chance of it just last week, but I didn't see it. All right. Give one more minute and then we will get started.
We have Italy in the chat. Buonvenuto, if that's correct. Got the UK. Top of the morning to you, if that's how it's supposed to do. Ragazzi. Um, wow.
All right. Well, good to see you all. I'm sure there'll be more people funneling in, but we can go ahead and start to kick it off. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get going. One second here. All right. Hopefully you all can see this. All right. And yes, the recording will be available later. Basically, we send it, usually it comes out, 2 or 3 hours after the event. It'll come to your email, whatever email you used when you signed up for the event. All right, let's kick it off. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about vibe coding. This is, if some of you have been, you've probably heard of it, of course, that's why you're here, and you've probably done some of it, but we're not claiming that we're the experts in all things vibe coding by any means. But what we do want to do is share some tips and tricks that have been working really well for us and our team at Mastra, and then hopefully give you all time to, you might have some tips of your own that can help others in this group. So ultimately, we want it to be a collaborative experience, but we want to share tips and tricks. That'll probably take up, maybe half the time. And then we actually want to build something. So Abi's just going to take us through if he was going to build an app, and we can, learn along the way, critique him a little bit along the way, and we'll build something fun and have a good time. So that's the goal of the workshop. So we'll, as I mentioned before, a quick history of vibe coding. We'll keep it short because the history is pretty short. It's pretty new. We'll talk about vibe coding tips and tricks, and then we'll build something. So what am I, or who am I? Shane Thomas. I'm one of the founders at Mastra. Previously at Gatsby and Netlify, I built a product called AudioFeed, and I've been doing open source stuff for over 15 years now. So please connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And I will introduce Abi as well. He's another founder at Mastra, the CTO, and he was also at Gatsby and Netlify with me. And he's never seen snowfall, which is just a funny running joke because he's come visited me in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but he's never come during the winter. I don't know why. And he wants to get Mastra to 14,000 GitHub stars. That's his personal goal. So what is Mastra? Mastra is an open source AI agent framework for TypeScript. It comes with a whole bunch of things for building AI agents and applications, tools, memory, tracing, voice capabilities. We have agentic workflow system that you can do human in the loop with a really simple API. You can write evals. It has storage for RAG pipelines and in a local development playground. So our goal with Mastra is it should be opinionated but flexible, so it helps you get further faster. But we're not going to be talking much about Mastra today. I just wanted to bring it up so you know where we're coming from. But this is the tweet that started it all. There's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding. Maybe you all saw this tweet, or maybe you just started hearing vibe coding and had no idea where it came from. So I'm not going to read the entire thing. These slides will also be shared after the event along with the recording. Give me a few hours and it'll get sent out. But the idea, the original idea was you just kind of talk to your computer, you and you tell it what you want it to do, and you just accept everything and you just correct it as you go. And that's kind of the whole idea that started this vibe coding thing. And now it's kind of ballooned. It means a lot more than this to a lot of different people. But this was the original tweet that started um, basically the whole thing that is now vibe coding. So I'm going to start with just a couple quick polls, and I think so you can do this, on your mobile device. I think you should all be able to see this as well. I don't know if I can move this. I can't. Why doesn't it let me move it? Um, Maybe I'll do that. There we go. So yeah, if you do want to go take this poll, we've got a couple people, a lot of people using Cursor. If you're using something else, there's a lot of other things. Definitely drop in the chat if there's something that we're missing, just so we know what people are using. Abi, what's your primary code editor of choice?
I use windsurf. Actually, I'm a windsurfer.
You're a windsurfer.
I've used Cursor, I've used windsurf, I've even tried VS Code. Um, but it's like the beginning of a Pokemon game, you just pick one.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a little unique that on any given day I use both Cursor and Windsurf. And the reason is because I just like to see which one feels better that day because both teams are shipping so fast that some days you feel like you're just really vibing well with one of them, and then it kind of starts hitting walls, and then maybe they change their system prompt for their agent a little bit, and it works well for some people but doesn't work well for you because of your style. So I've noticed that quite a bit. So there are certain things I do in Cursor and certain things I do in Windsurf. If you had to ask me which one I use more, I would say I use Windsurf more. But Cursor is by and far the winner, so that's very interesting. So, that's cool though. I think they're both great depending on what you want to do, and they're pretty similar, right? The goals are the same, but their implementation is of course a little bit different. All right, so how do I use this to the next poll? All right, so now let's go to another poll here. And this poll is, what model do you use the most? There's quite a few in here. I might have missed some as well. These are the ones that I've, been using a little bit here and there. So I try to put all those on there.
Ooh, Gemini's in the race.
I've actually, and you know, anecdotally, I talked to a lot of our customers that are building things with Mastra, and it has surprised me how much more and more people are using Gemini. It has very large context windows. It's very good quality. So I'm not surprised to see Sonnet winning, but I'm also not surprised to see Gemini. I have been testing 4.1 quite a bit and had okay luck. In Windsurf they have 4.1 kind of built in, and so that's been going pretty well. But I haven't noticed a significant improvement, or it's pretty similar in my opinion to Sonnet 3.7 for the most part. I haven't noticed significant differences yet, but I would still say I use Sonnet 3.7 the most as well. All right, so this is another great poll. There's a couple questions in chat. Have we felt a learning curve? So I actually haven't used Gemini 2.5 that much. I've played around with it a little bit, but I haven't used it in my day to day enough to know if there's significant differences or if there's a big learning curve. But feel free for others to jump into the chat if you have. All right, so most people are using Sonnet, and over half the people, 70+% if you count the two models. All right, so there's some polls for us, and I think I can actually enable. Yeah, we'll enable that later, but we have some polls. We have some results. We know most people are using Cursor and most people are using Sonnet, but there's obviously, people are choosing their own things. But Avi, I want to kick it over to you for this.
Cool. So we kind of gone through like the beginning phase where you pick an editor, you pick a model, and then vibe coding is just regular coding, by the way. But it really like you find yourself in two scenarios when you do vibe coding. The first scenario is you know what needs to be done, which we call making moves mode, which is you are in your bag where you know exactly the task at hand, how to do it. You could do it yourself, but you're lazy in a way. So in these cases, you know, you could write very detailed prompts, exactly what to do. You can like a good tip that what we try to do, and I think a guy in our chat said that he used like Gemini 2.5 for planning. That's exactly the right tip where you have this planning agent where you collaborate on a checklist of items or a, you know, like a rubric of success, right? And then you can keep going back to this checklist to just re-engage the LLM. Like we did this step, okay, now we're doing the next one. So that one, that like this all comes down to you knowing what you have to do. Therefore, you're outlining the steps, you know what the checklist is. You become like the CEO of running whatever task you're trying to do. But then there's the other case. You don't know what to do. And a lot of people don't know what to do, myself included. And this is where most vibe coding actually is taking place. And it's just for me the most fun and also the most frustrating, right? So when you don't know what to do, you have to change your tactic a little bit. You have to explain like what you're trying to do. There has to be some reasoning in the actions that you're taking because you've never done this before. And as much as the LLM tries to think that it's so confident, it's never done this with you before either, right? So you have to have a plan. A lot of mistakes we see is when you don't know what you're doing and you have your editor write code right away. Should not do that. You should start planning things. So you tell the agent, do not write code until we agree, or don't do anything until I tell you to do so. You iterate on a plan together. You still have to use your brain and you have to think like, does this plan sound reasonable? And then if there are things that you don't know, you can tell the agent to then go research it, use the internet, etc. You could provide links, you can provide topics for it to understand. Once you have assembled this plan, then you can execute it.
Yeah, I'll give one example of something that I kind of knew how to do, but I didn't know how to do. So recently I wanted to do something very simple. I just wanted to add post-hog analytic events to a server action in an XJS app. And I knew how, we already had post-hog, the JavaScript SDK, but I thought there might be like a Node SDK for the backend. I wasn't sure, but I kind of had done it in the past. And I could, of course, went to Google and found that answer in a few seconds, right? But because I was already in my editor, I could actually just explain that situation in a few sentences. It created the plan and it executed the plan. And it, of course, there was an Node SDK. It implemented it, worked one shot, and we were all good to go. So saved quite a bit of time on that one instance. But just by telling it to do the research first, you're kind of making sure that it's using external resources rather than just its internal knowledge, which is often on outdated documentation, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So oftentimes, like when you first start using your editor and you're doing things that you do know, you start feeling this really like a boost of productivity because you're just, you know, you're becoming more productive, right? But then you kind of hit this problem, what we like to call the intern problem. And this happens a lot when you don't know what you're doing. Like in the current state of the world, as new models get more advanced, they become very eager in this world of the AI code editors. Um, I'm pretty sure everyone here has seen something go off the rails, right? Where it starts writing a bunch of code that is irrelevant to what you're even asked it to do, or it starts introducing new paradigms into your code base because it read something from either general knowledge or something it read online. So we like to call these eager interns because it's not like the LLM is dumb. It's just very eager to please you and try to do all the tasks that it should, try to get ahead on things. And a lot of times it does stuff without asking permissions, which is why you have to have like these certain guardrails when you're interacting with it. Like Sonnet 3.7 is like a Stanford intern, like and very smart, but also very stupid. And then 3.5 is like a smart grunt, right? So like oftentimes I'm like, if 3.7 gets too crazy, I go down to 3.5. Gemini 2.5 is kind of like a neutral intern in a way, which is like more malleable. It's kind of weird. It's just the intern problem. And that's kind of the only way we kind of have a good way to describe it. A big tip to get rid of all this doubt. And as engineers, I've always struggled with this too. Like I've realized that like vibe coding and commanding maybe one or many code editors at the same time is really like commanding a small engineering team. And to do that successfully, I've learned in my career that you need to command the English language or whatever language your team speaks. In the case of you, your team of you and Windsurf or Cursor, English is the commanding language. I mean, English, the language, right? The language part is the commanding part, whether it's English or whatever you speak. Um, but you have to be able to break things down into smaller steps. You have to be like an engineering manager or like the project manager, not necessarily engineer anymore. And you have to really clearly become like a product manager. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, why are we doing this step? Like, what does like a good result look like, right? If you see the eager interns doing things, unrelated changes, all that stuff, you have to like course correct early, just like if you were running a company, right? You can't just let things go. You have to stop early. You have to redirect often. You are the CEO of this stuff, right? So the stop button is your best friend. If you really want to be successful at vibe coding, if you could learn anything, is the stop button is your best friend. Cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's talk some just general more vibe coding tips. So one thing we've done, because there is a knowledge cutoff with all these models, right? New models come out, the knowledge date moves, but depending on what you're doing, if you're doing something with, maybe that's been around a while and libraries have been around a while, the knowledge is probably already baked in, but a lot of times it's not. So what we did at Mastra and what, we'd kind of encourage you to do with if you're using open source projects is or you have one of your own is you should have probably an MCP docs server that keeps updated docs. That way, if someone's using your project, you can more easily get accurate information. And this has also been really good for us because it makes sure our docs have to be correct. Because it's not only just people using it, it's agents that are using our docs. And so I'll show just a real quick example of this in action because I think it's kind of interesting to see. And if you haven't used MCP in your code editors, I think that's another unlock, another great tip. So this is probably going to be a little bit, hopefully you can all see that. So I'm just going to create a quick master project just to show how this works, how we've kind of baked this in. So I'm just going to go through this, kind of speed run it really fast here. That's a cool link, James. Context 7, have not seen that. But so this will just take a second to install everything. Hopefully the internet, there it is. So I'm just going to basically just go through this really quick and install the defaults. And I will add an example. And then baked into our CLI, we just ask, do you want to install our MCP doc server? So I'll go ahead and just use Cursor for this one. Say yes, install it for Cursor. And now if I go into this and I open it up in Cursor, you see it says new MCP server detected, Mastra. I'll just enable that. And I can actually just go into my agent and I can say add memory to my agent. And hopefully it will understand that it's Mastra and it will use this MCP server. I called the Mastra docs MCP, you can see here. So I'll run the tool. It'll show what pages. It read the memory, the reference docs from memory. It's going to run npm install memory. So, I can run that. It should install memory for me. And then it's kind of doing a more, sometimes you got to tell it to do it, like implement it. Usually I'm a little bit more verbose, but we'll try to be just very straightforward. But now it's gonna actually implement memory. Looks good, I think. It doesn't look good. What is not like about this? You could simplify this a little bit. Interesting. Well, we can try to fix it. Nice thing about never tried it without the master keyword. Yeah, I usually use the master keyword to tell it. I'm just doing it here just to see. I and this is something I would not run. So yeah, I don't know what exactly is wrong here. Must have a package mismatch or something. But overall, you can see like this is actually the right format for installing memory. It actually did read the docs. It started with a more advanced version of memory, with all the kind of bells and whistles. We could just go with a more simple version. But that's just a really, again, trivial example of using using our doc server, right? It's the
Yeah.
idea of using MCP alongside your editor to actually get more features that your editor can actually access.
That issue is interesting that you saw, and this could happen to you when you're importing modules that have a lot of TypeScript types. The TypeScript server needs to be refreshed, but your agent doesn't know that. So it'll keep iterating on TS issues that do not exist. It's
Yeah.
just an interesting thing. These are just the little things that happen, you know? That's why you have to hit the stop button.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see what it was trying, a suggestion that it tried to, recommend was not something I would want to do. So there's definitely, if you know, there's a lot of different like people in experiences coming into doing the this vibe coding thing, right? Like if you've been coding for a long time, you're actually at a significant advantage if you can learn it because when something's wrong. You kind of have that sense or that that feeling. Where if you're newer, it is a little harder to develop that. You're gonna have to learn the hard way, just as we all did. And maybe you can learn faster because you can iterate faster now, but you definitely have to go through that learning curve. And this just doesn't seem right. Okay, some other just like quick tips. Using XML tags, and this is kind of like prompting tips, right? Some of the stuff you've probably already seen just doing normal prompting, but using XML tags or Markdown to provide structure to longer prompts is actually a pretty good practice. I typically just, if I want to show examples, I'll put, example one, XML tag around it. So it knows that this is the start and the end of it, especially when you get into longer prompts. It helps provide clearer structure. You can kind of, some things we typically see in like longer prompts would be an instruction section, examples. If there's examples for like, if you want them to call tools and like what kind of output format. This is more, a little bit more for agents, but also, in your code editor, you can do some of this stuff and make sure that it provides you the information you need. If you're working with really, really long context, let's say you have like you're working and your product manager gave you a PRD or something to drop in and you want to give it all the context around the feature you're trying to build. Well, you should place instructions at the beginning and the end of and kind of around that long context. And that actually improves the likelihood it's going to follow the instructions you give it. If you give it a lot of context, sometimes um, just at the beginning, it'll forget it by the time it gets to the end. And if you provide it just at the end, it won't know what you're trying to do as it's reading the context. And so it won't actually act on it correctly. So doing it both actually improves accuracy of results on not every model. Your models may vary a bit, but with a lot of models, that actually improves accuracy of getting the right results with less back and forth.
Other tips that we've seen, just talking to fellow YC batchmates and customers, is like showing emotion can help. I've done this ever since someone told me to do this. I've been doing it all the time. I can say that it works for me. Um, I detect frustration if I go into what these AI endless loops. If I go into an infinite loop getting led astray, I get very frustrated and I'll voice that to my editor. And I would like to think it improves, and it actually does. And then like if you start this is like really stupid as well. But if you start saying thank you and great job and stuff, I've also had just a time that was good. And I don't know if that's just me, but a lot of people have said that as well. And maybe it's like, if Skynet is coming, maybe be nice to it today, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I will say I noticed it more with Claude than like 4.0, and again, I haven't used Gemini that much, so I think Claude is more susceptible to the emotion, but I think yeah, different models react slightly differently.
yeah. And then just some funny things from the chat, telling it how disappointed you are in it and threatening you'll bring in a new agent also helps. That's so true. Like it's funny, but it's true, which is the funny part. And then
And that's actually a good point too. And I don't know if we might have that somewhere later down the line, but sometimes it is a matter of just like you let it get in, it's gotten into a loop, you switch the model out and you run it again with the past context, and sometimes it'll see all the things it did wrong and it'll kind of correct, you bring in a different intern to solve the task.
yeah. I will be angry at the poor Claude then, just like a good CEO. Dude, that's a tweetable thing. Brian, I would tweet that. That's very tweetable. Um, Shouting works, so it is an actual intern. It does. Okay, cool. So let's move on to commit
Yep.
early and often. Now, if y'all have used products like Lovable, even Cursor has checkpoints as well. If you've used any of those products, like when you're doing things you don't know, you're in this like vibe loop where you're like, oh, things are working. Like, oh, I'm killing it. I am such a genius today. I am prompting like a machine and everything goes well. And then you take one bad turn and your whole project gets messed up. And because you've been vibing, aka accept, you don't know where you are in the project, right? And you don't know how to debug it. And so the best thing to do is to go back to where things were working and then get like some grounding there. I've screwed up and I've seen many people screw up where you keep vibing your way out of problems and it causes more problems. So you have to pay attention to checkpoints, just like normal software engineering. And if you do get into this like checkpoint hell where you've created too many branches that are destroyed your work, a normal git bisect could help, like just throwing out some old school engineering things. Um, and actually learning the code that you vibed also helps. But you should make incremental changes. I like to do that as well. So, some other useful tips to close out the tips section of this workshop. Um, if you're doing we're going to do this in a second, but you can like just put UI screenshots. And if you're doing some UI work, you could just tell it to like, hey, make it look like this. And it does decent. So that's cool. When you notice things go wrong for an extended period of time, maybe it's time to start a new chat. I've also had chats with my windsurf agent in the same conversation for many days with no problem, but then eventually, and I don't know the rhyme or reason, the conversation goes poisoned, right? Or poisoned in the sense that I'm not getting any productivity out of the conversation anymore. I start a new conversation and then I'm in context build-up mode again, and then I have several days of great productivity and it gets poisoned again. I think this is more so a bug and also more so the context of how this stuff works, but sometimes you just need to start a new chat. And then a lot of times agents don't execute. It'll say like was unable to execute, and don't be like me and think that it's always going to execute. So then you're wondering like, hey, like what's going on here? You just tell it to do it again. And if it doesn't do it that many times, then there's probably something wrong. Um, yeah, so those are some tips. We have
So
some other tips. Go ahead, Shane.
well, I was gonna say there's a good question in the chat that I figured it worth just
Yeah.
answering. What do you think of the studies that say it it's the dumbing down of a person? This is actually something I've thought a lot about. I do wonder, am I getting dumber? because I'm not using the same parts of my brain. You when you engineer, for long periods of time, you have to get really good at problem solving, right? And now a lot of those basic muscle memory things maybe go away if you don't use them all the time. I think, you know, there's definitely a chance of that, right? I would also say that at some point though, we don't, like at one point I knew binary code, right? I learned that in school, but I don't use it
Nope.
and I don't need to use it. And so that's the kind of maybe the scary part of all this is like I don't think I'm losing it too much because I still have to it's not good enough to solve all the problems for me. So I think I still have to stay sharp, but I have worried about that if it gets good enough where all the basic problems are solved, will I even be able to solve them anymore? Or more so, how would someone new ever get good enough to solve those problems? And I guess there's two questions. They either have to they'll have to learn it the hard way like we did, or maybe they won't need to in the future. And that's the other, maybe scarier, thought if you are an engineer like me, like yourself, think about maybe won't those skills are less valuable in the future. I don't know. So time will tell. But it's things I've definitely thought about. All right, go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I first started learning JavaScript, I used Lodash, and I didn't even know what .map actually did in JavaScript because there's an abstraction for me. But to become a better engineer, you have to learn what your tools do. So I think, yeah, it's going to be like a split path for a lot of people. Like, do you want to completely vibe, or do you want to like understand what you're building? Nowadays, like when I'm doing things I don't know and I'm doing it piecemeal using the tips that we kind of like talked about, I'm actually learning new things because like the 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 editor is kind of bringing concepts to me that I would previously had to go to Stack Overflow or Google to go and learn and read docs before I can actually play with it in my hands, right? So it's a different type of learning now too. So let's not like discount that this is also positive in that way too. You can learn through vibe coding as well. But yeah, we could talk about that all day. So let's
Yeah.
keep going. Editor tips. So last point here. Cursor rules are pretty good. Um, I know many people that swear by them. So they have these base set of rules that are in their editor, and then like it kind of like dictates the vibe. And what I mean by dictates the vibe is like you can encode certain, your preferences in these rules, certain documentations that are needed. Teams share cursor rules with each other. That's a really cool thing. If you want to like share this like company context of something that you want all the editors to sync up about, cursor rules is pretty good for that.
One thing on cursor rules though that I have heard a lot about is as models improve, you need to revisit your cursor rules because what worked a year ago might have less effectiveness with new models. So just know that it's something it's an active thing that you'll have to maintain, especially if you're sharing it with the team.
Yeah. Windsurf like is really nice because you can add files. I mean, just like in anything, but and we're gonna do some demos in a short bit, but at filing stuff is nice. Another Windsurf plug is they have like preview server, so you can like do everything within Windsurf. So maybe you don't need Lovable or any of those other platforms. We're gonna try that out today. And then last bit, and I saw some tips that was in the Zoom chat as well as like writing tests. You could do this thing called a test loop where you have the editor write the test, execute the test fails, it fixes the test fails, and he goes through a loop. And if you have to be ready to hit stop though. But sometimes it'll finish the whole loop and you've just written tests without doing anything. So that's just a cool tip. All right, let's buy. I will share my screen and let's get going. So today I wanted to just vibe a random app that I've been thinking about. Um, and I'm starting naked here. I want to build one of those flashcard apps, which is really kind of trivial, but I want it to be like a flashcard app where you can put a topic and it'll generate like 10 flashcards for you on the topic, and then you can like study or something. So let's just so I'm not a front end developer, by the way. Like I know how to use React and stuff, and I'm a decent debugger. So like I've never like I don't know if Webpack is still a thing or not. So this will be a good test, right? So also, can you guys see my screen and should I make it bigger? Can I make it bigger? Oh, I can. Is this good?
Yeah, we can see your windsurf.
All right, dudes. Let's start. So I want, so I'm gonna just, so I'm gonna start doing like this pre-planning thing. This is what I would usually do. I know that I'm supposed to use, I know that the hype thing right now is to use this thing called Vite, right? But I don't know anything about Vite. And so that's where I would start. Like, I don't know anything about this tool Vite. Can you share some information with me on why I should use it over something like, what's the other thing people use? Next.js? Um, so let's see. Oh, it's always happy to share information with me, like as such a negative person that I am, it's good to have to work with someone so positive, right? I'm just kidding. So it's telling us the differences, like, oh, okay, that's cool. Evan, you actually know this guy. Great dude. Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna build a single page app. That's cool. And then I'm gonna use Mastra's agents for generating the cards. So let's actually like, okay, can you make me a basic Vite project so I can understand the architecture? And honestly, guys, this is how I vibe code because I'm doing things I don't know and I'm not trying to like not know stuff, right? So this is kind of how I do it. And then I do accept all like this because I don't really know. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool, accept. Sure. Ooh, okay, open in terminal. Let me do that. Yep. All right. Also, Shane, if there's like comments and stuff, just feel free to like in the chat, just like blurt them
Yeah.
out.
I wanted to make a comment when you said you being a pessimist. Remember, we call it reverse optimism.
That's true.
You're a resident reverse optimist.
Yeah. Reverse optimism. That helps in the vibe code world. So it's doing a bunch of stuff. It made the Vite demo, and now I can do run dev. Cool. And so this is running the server and it's doing its thing. I can actually hit this. And this is a cool feature of Windsurf, which is the browser preview, right? So I can open it in my editor here and cool. Okay, so if you notice, I haven't like opened one file yet, which is dope. Um, which I love this part of vibe coding. But like once again, I don't know what I just created, so I'm just gonna take a look real quick. This looks like a normal like create React app type of thing as someone who doesn't know anything about Vite. I noticed there's a Vite config here, but okay, sick. Like that makes sense. Don't know what the strict mode thing is, but I don't really care. And all right, I can keep vibing. And I have this preview here. So let's first do the UI thing. So I want to make a flashcard app um, using this project we started. Can you, let's make a plan on the functionality of an app that generates flashcards for students based on a topic of their interest. And I'm just going to go with that and see what we come up with.
Cool. Yeah, one other thing that I like to do, I don't do it all the time because especially it's weird if people are around, but I do like to use Super Whisper and just like talk out my thoughts on these things. Yeah, one, sometimes LLMs actually do okay if you ramble a little bit, especially if it's not too much context. So you can kind of just like talk out the thoughts and then it'll paste in. You can edit the text if you want to. But depending on your typing speed, you might actually be able to get more information out or get your thoughts out more clearly, kind of just talking through them. So that's something I like to do once in a while.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see that it made a project plan now. Let's just skim it. Okay, core functionality, sure. Display front black flip animation. Wow, that is something I definitely want. Spaced repetition. This might be like some, I don't know, some extra features. Progress tracking. Okay. Like it is thinking bold, bolder than me right now. So that's great. User flow enters a topic interest. Wow, it read my mind. I wonder, maybe it's because flashcard apps work all the same way. And it has a cool UI thing. I'm not much of a UI guy, so I don't really care. Data structure, though, I do care about this. So let's see. A topic, question, answer. Okay, that looks good to me. Topic structure looks good. And it has a plan here. Okay. Like this is all reasonable, and that's sounds good. So let's just go for it. So what if I just tell it, okay, I want you to first do everything you just said, but only the UI things. And it's probably not gonna, let's see what it does. I might have to hit stop. So it wants Tailwind CSS and React Router for navigation. Okay, sure. I'm interested to see if it gets this Tailwind CSS thing right. Oh, let's try installing a different approach. Okay, sure. Uh-oh, are we in a loop? Let's see, what's this npm error? Um, so if I run this from my own terminal, is that even a command, right? Like, so did it hallucinate this command? Is this a command? Right? So now I'm in this point where I gotta go look up Tailwind CSS and like how do I init? Okay, so this is what you're supposed to do. Let's see if it actually is gonna get itself out of this situation. So what did it do? It created a config file. It created this index CSS. Okay, sure. And now it wants to make some assets and pages. Okay, let's just keep vibing. I'm getting some code smells right now, but nothing we can't recover from. So I'm just gonna accept stuff. Um,
Yeah, and it's also possible, depending on the version of, Tailwind it's familiar with, it's very possible that it's trying to do something that maybe worked at one point, but it doesn't work anymore. Or it's using old docs because that's what it was trained on.
look, ours, all our CSS went away. No.
Yeah, the other thing would be to ask it to go out to the Tailwind website first and research how to install Tailwind.
Yeah, so this is what I'll do after it. We got lint errors, things are happening. Like it's doing a lot of things mediocrely. You know what I mean? Um, it's already doing the home page. So I'm gonna let it keep going and then I'm gonna course correct. Let's because I want to see what is it working on right now?
Yeah, in the chat, someone said, the stop button is your friend.
I know it is my friend, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Yeah, and
These
so,
don't look too bad.
someone said, I've had the issue. Most of the models are using Tailwind 3 by default. You have to tell them to use 4, yeah. So it is a version. Again, this is why Tailwind should probably have just,
Doc server.
MCP docs.
Okay, so now it's getting back to the app.jsx. Okay. Also, it wrote everything in JSX, dude. Oh, we have a new app. It looks like crap, but that's okay. We're gonna do two things after this. Once it's done. Hopefully it's done soon. Oh my God. Isn't it just wild that you can just like we've been like in this loop for like maybe 3 minutes or something, and it's still going. I do want to hit the stop button. I really do, but I just want to see it keep going. Um, After this, maybe. I just want to see. Can it course correct itself? The answer is probably no. Oh, now let's fix Tailwind? Is this even correct? Okay. Okay. And it didn't restart the terminal for me. Okay, so let's do a couple things before we restart it. I'm pretty sure you hallucinated Tailwind, you doofus. Um, I don't want to be too mean to it in public because I would say other things in private right now. Um, Knowledge is power, bro. Knowledge is power, bro. Read this and shape up your life.
Yeah, Abby, if Skynet's coming, you're in its top, you're its top list.
So it always agrees with you too. You're absolutely right. It always agrees with you. It's the best working relationship. So now it's gonna go read and see. Oh, now I'm absolutely right again. Wow, I'm so right. Okay, let's see.
And if you do have questions or if you have other suggestions that you think would be useful to share, please use the chat. The odds of this thing's probably going to go for the next 15 minutes. We'll just see how far we can get. But if you ask questions, I'll stop and try to answer some if I can or Abby can. Obviously we're helping each other out too, so feel free to jump in and answer questions in the chat if they do come in. I think that's what this is one of the interesting things is seeing. It's kind of interesting just to see how people do things differently because of course I would probably be doing things slightly differently. I'm sure you would as well. But it is interesting to see what works for people as we've kind of learned. The way I write code today is way different than 2 years ago. I could imagine for you all it's the same.
There's one benefit of this approach. Like I have a basic understanding of a React, let's say. It's also trying to do this init command again. Oh my God, it's gonna fail. Okay, so once again, continued issues. Okay, we should probably stop, but I'm gonna give it one more chance. Um, This is pretty okay. Now it's literally no, we're stopping. Okay, so this is interesting because like to use all these libraries like Tailwind and stuff may be trivial for some developers, right? But as you can see, there is a bunch of configuration you have to do. Imagine without an LLM assistance, you would have to discover these things. Like, we started 15 minutes ago. I mean, like we got pretty far, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But it's these type of issues where it goes into loops that really like stunt the growth of what you're trying to do, right? So let's actually go read some docs real quick. Um, I think we did this already. Yeah. And just grab this, which is what we already have. So that's good. This CSS thing. All right, let's do it. Um, Index.css. That's already here. Okay, sure. And I mean, it's complaining about the post CSS, but I really kind of want to understand. So, like, we hallucinated post CSS in the first place, right? Like, or did we? Like, when did this came in through? This came in through the vibe code here, but do we have to use it? Um, Also, let's look at the error. Also, if anyone knows in the chat, help me out too. It looks like you're trying to use Tailwind CSS as a post CSS plugin. Sure, let's just do this, which I thought it did install. Oops, not that. Oh, you can't. Okay.
George dropped something for your config in the chat if
Cool.
that doesn't work.
Take a look real quick. Oh, okay.
But I'm assuming you still need to install that plugin.
Yeah. Tailwind CSS, post CSS. Where do I put this plugin?
You got to drop it into your Tailwind config, I think.
Uh, in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need this comment too? Oops. I guess so.
A bunch of back-end engineers doing front-end engineering.
Seriously, dude. I don't know. Okay, let's just see if it works. Uh,
Yeah, let some kind of type error, export error, it looks like.
vibe coding. Post CSS.
Yeah, it might.
Post CSS config.mjs. Do I even need this shit though? That's the question. Can I just remove this? Or should we just roll with bad UI for now? Because that's what I would do. Let me just remove this. Does this change anything? For the sake of everyone.
You gotta maybe do a default export instead. Maybe that's.
Well, this is a JS file, so oh, that should be fine actually. That's cool. This is what happens. Um, let's run dev ourselves too. Whoa, dude, this is what it looked like the whole time? What are we doing, dude? Oh my God, I'm so frustrated. Okay, this looks pretty sick, dude. Okay, wow, okay. Um, let's create flashcards. Okay, let's just test this. Yeah, Lionel Messi sounds good. We didn't add any. Okay, wow. I'm pretty impressed because this was hiding from us for the last 2 minutes. So that's great. Let's just keep going then. Okay. Oh, it's here now too. Fun. Okay. Um, now let's do some monster stuff if we can. I don't know if we have time because we got hit with this freaking CSS issue. God, CSS sucks, dude. Um, I want to add Mastra to this project in source Mastra, which is also vague, but I do have
You have the doc server, right?
doc server. So it's gonna start reading, getting started.
It says it's not able to find that for some reason. Weird.
Oh, I think I have an old version of the doc server.
No, it looks like it was able to find the other ones.
Yeah, I found a quick start. Source agents, let's do it. Okay, we're gonna install all that. I'm cool with it. Very nice. Okay. Dude, it's making the agent as well? Holy snap. Dude, the power of the doc server. Like imagine if I had the Tailwind doc server, I would not have gone through that pain. So if you're using open source projects, y'all, you should tell your maintainers. Like, cause look
Yeah.
how honestly, I know we created this, but like to see it live in this live demo coding thing that it just made the flashcard agent, that's sick. Also, it made a workflow too, which I don't know what we're gonna use this for yet, but now that it's there, I can like look at it and like kind of learn what it did. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so someone else mentioned, or maybe multiple people mentioned this thing, Context 7, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. It looks like there's a whole bunch of different, documentation that you can use with your for a whole bunch of open source projects. So maybe something like that would have helped us a little sooner to get through this initial tailwind loop.
Yeah. So let's see what it did. So this is not going to work because it's calling Mastra like on the client side. So what I can do now is like actually Mastra is a server only library. Isn't there a client SDK or something? Because I'm running a client only Mastra client SDK. I mean, and I'm absolutely right, dude. That's the best part. I am absolutely right. I'm not just right. I'm absolutely right. Okay, install it. And we'll go through one more loop, but I think y'all know where this is heading, right? Like it's gonna work, surprisingly, um, which I'm very happy about. And so like the app, it was pretty far in 30 minutes, you know?
Yeah, maybe we'll, if you spend another 10 minutes, we'll add this to GitHub and share it with everybody. So if they want to see where we got,
So now
and if,
it's, go ahead, yeah. Now it's integrating the client SDK as it should.
well, Abby, now you know what I'm gonna ask. We just you spend another half hour, we'll get this up as a master example, you know?
Much.
Yeah, you keep going. You want to stop screen share and I'll just do a few roundup slides and maybe if we do have any last minute questions, we can try to answer those as well. All right. Well, thanks everyone for going on that journey. Yeah, anytime you do live demos, you never know especially with this, right? It's even less controlled because we don't get to choose what the model decides. But that's kind of part of this whole thing, right? This whole the way we write code now is a little bit different, and so we're all learning. Hopefully, you enjoyed this. Please, provide some feedback. You'll get the recording of this after the event. You'll get we'll link to the slides. We'll send a link to the repo once we get it pushed up wherever the end state is, pretty soon here. If you haven't already, please give Mastra a star on GitHub. We'd appreciate that. We also have Mastra Cloud Platform. We currently, just have a wait list, but it's in beta. Some links to connect with us or to learn more about Mastra. Join our Discord if you want to chat about building AI agents and AI applications. And we have future events. This one's a little different. We tried to make it more just fun. A lot of the stuff we do is around how to build workflows with Mastra or how to build agents with Mastra, things like that. We do have a lot of those events coming up as well. So with that, if you do have any questions, definitely let us know. And just appreciate you all coming out.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us.
Thanks, lads.
Yeah,
See
thank you.
Also, thanks for helping out all the time on Discord too. Very helpful. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for sure.